Let us therefore brace ourselves to our duties, and so bear ourselves that if the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will still say, this was their finest hour. June 18th, 1940. The air tastes like smoke. Londoners are carrying their lives in small suitcases. The map on the wall is darker every morning, and the radios are thin with fear. Churchill stands in Parliament and does not offer comfort. He offers duty. He offers a standard to measure yourself against when the future is a fog you can't see through. He's not talking to statues or history books. He's talking to people who have jobs to do and families to protect and doubts they cannot say out loud. He's talking to you. And the promise hiding inside those words is simple, brutal, and freeing. You do not need perfect certainty to live with courage. You need a direction you can grip when your hands are shaking. So let's go back into the rooms where those words were forged. Not the stage lights. The rooms where paper and ink absorbed the weight of his doubts. A letter to his wife after a public disgrace. A private essay about learning to paint when politics shut him out. And yes, that famous speech at the edge of national collapse. 3 sources, 1 spine. A way to stand up on the days that try to break you. Begin with failure. It's 1915. The Dardanelles campaign has become a bleeding wound, and Churchill carries much of the blame. The headlines are not kind, the colleagues are colder, and the world thinks the story might be over for him. And yet, in letters to Clementine, he grapples openly with the pain and the shame. No slogans, no triumphant swell of music, just the exact shape of a man who knows he has failed, and who refuses to let that be the end of his usefulness. What do you do after a mistake this big? He could have gone quiet. He could have licked his wounds and rewritten the past to protect his pride. Instead, he did something that feels almost old-fashioned now. He went back to work. He joined a battalion on the Western Front. He learned mud, cold, and the small, simple duties that repair a broken spirit. In those letters, you don't see a man trying to reclaim fame. You see a man determined to earn back the right to carry any kind of authority at all. That is the first turn of the key. Most people wait for confidence to return before they act. Churchill flips it. He acts before the feeling arrives. He treats action as a medicine for a soul that cannot trust itself anymore. He uses duty, the tasks right in front of him, as a rope he can hold when the water is deep and dark. But the war inside a mind does not end just because you are busy. The second scene is quieter. We step into the 1920s, after the rattle of applause has faded and the invitations have thinned. You find him with a paint box, a canvas, and a long, slow afternoon. He writes an essay about it later, how painting came to him not as a hobby but as a rescue, not to escape reality, but to give his mind a way to rest that was active, courageous, and strangely honest. Painting taught him to look closely, to trust color when words could not be trusted, to practice audacity with a brushstroke and humility when it went wrong. He learned that even the great storms inside a person can be softened by a disciplined, creative ritual. He discovered what you and I forget when life locks up. Sometimes the bravest act is to make something, anything, beautiful and absorbing, right in the middle of the mess. So here's the second turn of the key. When your thoughts spin and your heart races, you don't argue with the storm. You give your mind a craft that anchors it. For Churchill, it was painting. For you, it might be writing, building, training, gardening, cooking, sketching, soldering a kit, coding a tiny tool, or walking the same late-night path every day until it becomes a kind of prayer. The ritual is not a luxury. It's your oxygen mask. Now we go back to the room where the nation could feel the wind kicking up under its feet. June 1940 again. France is collapsing. The beaches are crowded with exhausted men, and the sky is full of bad news. In Parliament, Churchill stands and speaks of the 1,000-year judgment. This was their finest hour. The line is not about ego, and it is not about victory. It is about bearing. What kind of people do we become when fear is in charge? And what kind of people can we choose to be instead? In those words, there's a third turn of the key. He invites a worn-out, frightened people to borrow the eyes of the future, not to invent a fantasy, but to measure the present by a larger horizon. Imagine who you want to be remembered as. Then align today with that memory. Not the memory of someone who never failed, the memory of someone who did not run when everything hurt. Put the three keys together. After failure, you serve. When your mind rages, you create. When the night feels endless, you borrow the eyes of 1,000 years and brace yourself to your duty, small and steady. This is not motivational poster talk. It is wartime craftsmanship for the inner life. And the letters matter, because the letters reveal how human he was. He admitted sadness, self-reproach, the familiar heavy shadow he called the black dog. He could be brittle, wrong, unfair, very human. But he learned a pattern that you and I can learn too. He refused to take the vote of his worst hour as the truth about his whole life. Here's how you translate that into your week. When something collapses, your plan, your reputation, your energy, don't chase a feeling or wait for perfect clarity. Pick the nearest honest duty and do it with the dignity of a person who will be remembered for how they stood, not just how they won. Return a call. Fix the small thing. Write the apology. Reopen the spreadsheet. Clean the room. Read your child a story with your phone in another room. One act of quiet duty can flag down your scattered courage like a taxi on a wet street. Next, build your oxygen ritual. Before the day begins, pick a craft and put it on your calendar like a medical appointment. 20 minutes. No multitasking. No notification intrusions. The point isn't perfection, it's absorption. If Churchill could steady a rattled mind with light and color, perhaps you can steady yours with 3 chords on a guitar, a pencil sketch of your kitchen chair, a careful chopping of onions, or the deliberate refolding of a shirt until it looks like a small, square promise. And finally, keep the 1,000-year test in your pocket. When the moment pressures you to choose the easy path, ask, if a future grandchild or a future stranger heard about how I handled this hour, would they call it my finest? Not the hour where everything worked, the hour where I braced, stayed, and did the next right thing. But imagine if we stopped there, service, craft, horizon, and forgot the most practical part of Churchill's method, how he moved through a room, a day, a crisis. He was not always calm. He could be volcanic. But he learned to externalize his commitment with simple physical signals. A red label stamped, "Action this day." A tight schedule, a ritual of dictation and a daily walk. He didn't trust mood to carry him. He put rails on his day so a locomotive of duty could run even when the coal felt low. You can do the same. Choose a phrase. It doesn't have to be grand. Put it in your calendar. Put it on your desk. Ship by noon. 1 honest page. Call the hard one. Walk the block. The stamp isn't magic. It's a little tug on the sleeve when your focus starts to drift. Now come back to the letter after disgrace. Imagine the ink drying. Imagine the silence in that room, the sound of a chair pushed back, the decision to go forward anyway. We romanticize resilience, but in real time it looks like ordinary tasks executed by a person who would rather lie down. That is why it works. There's no crowd, just duty. And then picture the canvas. He was not a master. He was a beginner at an age when most people stopped trying new skills. He wrote about audacity, the willingness to put color down, make a mess, and learn. That's the hidden subtext of courage. You need audacity not only to face danger, but to face embarrassment, to endure the awkwardness of being new, to love progress more than the illusion of perfection. When he rose in Parliament to speak of the finest hour, he was not promising ease. He was naming what becomes possible when a person coordinates their inner life. You accept the fall without excusing it. You rediscover steadiness in a craft. You choose to bear yourself well, even when the road is mud and rumor. That combination does not make fear vanish. It makes fear irrelevant. You may say that sounds noble, but what about when the stakes are ordinary? The stakes are never ordinary. They are smaller, yes, but they accumulate. The way you reply to an email when angry. The way you check your bank account when it scares you. The way you listen to someone who is boring you. Every tiny act is shaping your ability to stand in the larger moments. Churchill didn't invent courage in 1940. He practiced it for decades in 1,000 small rooms, and then he spent it in public. There's a passage of his life that rarely gets screen time. The quiet months after the noise fades, when you are between identities. He learned to live there. That's where the letters are most revealing. He complained, he doubted, he reconsidered his judgment. And then he set a routine for the next morning anyway. That is the engine, not bravado. Habit. By now, you can see the outline of your own plan. 3 keys, 1 engine. When you are injured by failure, serve. When your mind storms, create. When the night is long, borrow the eyes of 1,000 years and bear yourself like a steward of something larger than your feelings. And tie it all together with humble, repeatable structure. Action this day. Midway through our time, I want to ask you something honest. Which single Churchill line would you keep in your pocket for the next 7 days, and why? Tell me in the comments. If this helped you build a steadier week, tap like so this finds the next person who needs it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into dark, usable courage. Now, one more look at their finest hour. That sentence terrifies some people. It sounds like a call to martyrdom. But that's not the heart of it. The heart is stewardship. Bear yourself. Carry your name well. It's not an order to throw yourself into every fire. It's an invitation to honor the meaning of your life with the way you show up to the small fires. In that spirit, try this tonight. Before sleep, write a 3-line letter to the person who depends on your courage, someone you love, or a future version of yourself. Say what you faced today, what you did about it, and what you will do tomorrow. You are writing the archive you will consult on the next bad day. And then pick your craft for tomorrow, 20 minutes, and set it out like you're preparing a rescue. Remember the battalion. Remember the canvas. Remember the chamber. These are not relics. They are rooms you can enter when you need to remember who you are. If you can build these rooms into your routine, your life stops being a hallway you sprint down and becomes a house you can inhabit with strength. You might still fear the black dog. You might still feel the weight of past mistakes. You might still face rooms where the map is darker each morning. Courage will not delete any of that. Courage will choose what to do in the presence of it, and what he meant then still matters now. Your certainty will not save you. Your bearing might. If you cannot promise a victory, you can still promise your posture. If you cannot guarantee applause, you can still guarantee the next right thing. I think of that sentence again in its original setting, the air full of smoke and stubbornness. A leader telling a tired people they still had something sacred to give, how they would carry themselves. Whether anyone would remember it in 1,000 years is less important than whether you will remember it next week when your own hour arrives. So here's the closing counsel. As if he were standing in your doorway, cigarette burning low, eyes hard and kind. Accept the blow, then serve. Give your mind a craft. Choose your bearing. Stamp your day with a phrase that drags you forward when your mood tries to sandbag you. Put your shoulders back in the narrow hallway of the day and walk to the end of it with purpose. And when the night questions you, answer with your record. What you did, not just what you felt. Do that over and over with the patient stubbornness of someone who has discovered that hope is not a mood. It's a method. When history looks back, history of a country, history of a family, or simply the history you carry in your own name, it will not ask whether you always won. It will ask whether you braced yourself to your duty and bore yourself well in your hour. Let the answer be yes. Let this be your finest hour, not once, but as a way of life, repeated in small rooms where only you will ever see it. And when the map darkens, and the air tastes like smoke, and the radio hisses with more bad news, you'll already know what to do. You will have practiced it. You will have lived it. You will be ready to bear yourself. That is the promise inside those letters and that line. Not a guarantee, a method. Use it tonight. And in the morning, when the badge of the day is pinned on you again, step back into the fight with your craft in one hand and your duty in the other, and walk forward as if the future were watching, because it is.